Okay, next question. This mom says, my 17-month-old, who is a slow gainer, still wakes once a night for a bottle. We do one right before bed, but we put her down awake. So first I would just defer to the pediatrician and make sure that your goal of getting rid of the nighttime bottle is okay. Typically that's not a concern that I have at this age, but just because you mentioned that she's a slow gainer, I just want to be safe about that. But probably at this point, it's just habit or association. So even though she isn't falling asleep on the bottle at bedtime, which is great, some kids, if it's the last step right before they go into the crib, or even if it isn't, but it's just a step that happens in the room, there's nothing wrong with that. But I just find that when I work with toddlers, and I do work with a lot of them, they have a much easier time accepting no night feeds when the bedtime feed is taken out of the room. So something you could try is just removing milk from the bedtime routine, which I know is far easier said than done. For example, you could switch to doing cups of milk with dinner, and then she could finish up the cup after dinner, but it just wouldn't come upstairs with you. Or if you're not ready, it depends if you want to ditch the overnight bottle or bottles period, which you can do at the same time or separately. I don't care if you offer a bottle with dinner, but the idea would be to make it be a dinner and an evening thing, and less of a sleep thing. I have a lot of success. She's a little young for this, but in case anybody with older ones is watching, or in case you want to try it with her, make a big to-do about putting the milk to night. So literally have her walk with you or carry her over to the refrigerator, put the bottle or the cup into the refrigerator before you go upstairs, and just night milk, see you in the morning. Make a big deal out of that. It sounds really silly, and it is, but for some reason, then later when they're asking and you say, milk went night, they're like, oh yeah, I remember that. That makes sense. Not to say that she'll give you an easy time of it, but it may help on some level. You could just try removing it from bedtime and see if that gives you any carryover to the overnight. If she wakes less for it, wants it less. I actually doubt it. I mean, maybe you'll get lucky and that'll be the only change you need to make, or it can be the first change that you make. If it were up to me, just because I do this so often and I've seen it so many times, I would probably address both bedtime and the overnight all at once. So we'd put the milk to night before bed. It wouldn't be part of the bedtime routine. And then when she wakes overnight, you would say no milk, in whatever way you decide to do that. So, and all the options are available to you. You could pop in and check on her and tell her milk is sleeping, and, continue checking on her every few minutes until she's back to sleep. You could ignore her if you're comfortable with that. Not everybody is. You could sit with her and help her through this change. I'm going to rub your back and hold your hand. I know this is a big change and we're going to get through it together. But then she may trade the bottle habit for that habit, and then you may have to wean off of that help that you're giving her, which is fine with me if it's fine with you. And then I would just be really careful with this age group, particularly, to treat each and every night waking the same. So if you say no the first time she wakes, for example, and then she wakes a second time, which is unusual in your case, and you'd probably feel a little annoyed about that, like, oh, this lady gave me advice, and now my child's waking more often, which I understand. I'll take that. She may just be sort of checking in to see, like, you said no last time, but what if I ask again? So you'd want to really sort of hunker down and say there aren't going to be night bottles anymore, and that applies for the whole night, all the way through till morning. And then also be really careful that you've decided in advance, when is morning? Is it 6 a.m.? Is it 7 a.m.? That way, if your minimum is 6 and she wakes at 5, you don't go down a slippery slope of like, oh, close enough, I'll come in with a bottle. So decide what's going to be nighttime and what's going to be morning. And when you offer her morning milk in whatever capacity, bottle, cup, whatever, be sure to first start her day, open the curtains, maybe sing a little wake up song, bring her out of her room and offer the milk. I'm saying her, but I don't know if you said that, so I might be assuming. Offer the milk outside of the bedroom, because another thing toddlers struggle with is understanding why, for example, that morning milk can still happen in there, but overnight it couldn't. You have to kind of think with a toddler brain about how they kind of see things. We can separate. They are a little more black and white. So try to have a really black and white approach, not because you want to be rigid, but because that will just make more sense from your child's point of view. And when it makes more sense, they are more prone to get on board more easily and more quickly. So I hope that helps.